Feel free. Feel free. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor and a privilege to have you this morning. I hope, one of the reasons we come to these events is networking. And I hope you have said hello to your neighbor. You have their business cards, you know who they are, you know what they do. Hopefully it is not the person you came to this event with. Hopefully it is somebody new, and you can be able to discuss and benchmark and move forward. My name is Humphrey Asimwe, and I have the privilege of working with Uganda Chamber of Energy and Minerals. So formerly we were Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum, but this year we rebranded to Uganda Chamber of Energy and Minerals for obvious reasons. We are a private sector member-based association that brings together players in the oil and gas sector, in the energy sector, as well as the mining sector and their value chains. Our intention is to make sure that there is proper advocacy, there is also networking and building business linkages, as well as capacity building in the sector and moving our sector forward. We've been doing this since the year 2000. I have the privilege, the distinguished privilege, of moderating this panel today, and it is entitled Unlocking Uganda's Mining Potential, Investment Opportunities in Exploration and Value Addition. As a country, we are really endowed with minerals. Last count, we have about 57 known resources in this country. It's just a matter of doing further exploration, and we will be able to identify and stand on reserves. One of the things that is for sure about Uganda is that we have the ability to mine ourselves out of poverty. We have the ability to mine ourselves out of poverty. And so that is what our panel is going to be discussing. We're going to explore the potential of this country. We want to talk about investment needs in exploration, in strategic value addition, through local processing and refining. How do we promote investment? How do we attract companies that are interested in whether exploration or value addition or any of the other value chain activities in the mining sector to come into this country and be part of our journey? In the 60s and 50s, Uganda was a mining destination, and our GDP, approximately 14% of our GDP was from minerals. We are talking about copper, we're talking about the 3 T's, tin, tantalum, and titanium. We're talking about gold, we're talking about cobalt, and many others. Today, a lot of work has been done in terms of exploration, and we are at a place where we should be able to move this country to the place of being a mining giant again. So I want to take some time to introduce our panelists, but coming from the private sector, we are not too big on protocol, so you will forgive me. What instead I'm going to do is ask the panelists, I'll give them 1 minute each to introduce themselves, who they are, what they do, why they are here, and in just 1 minute. And the reason I am standing is so that I can manage the time. So you can rest assured we are going to have a fabulous discussion. I also want to say from the onset that we did not invite you here to come and watch these distinguished ladies and gentlemen discuss amongst themselves. We want you, the audience, to come up with questions, come up with contributions, because I'm definitely going to give you an opportunity to say something, to ask something, to be part of this conversation. We are here to converse. We have a rapporteur, some key statements, some key take-homes from this discussion. We want to be able to put in a matrix. We want to be able to cascade into work plans, follow up, so that next time we come here, as you know, in similar occasions, we can be able to look back and say, how far have we come on the mining story? I have a very balanced panel. I have one lady, and rest assured, she's a very powerful lady. That is none other than Dr. Susan Nakanwaji. Since they say ladies first and gentlemen just after, we will start with Dr. Nakanwaji. You have 1 minute to introduce yourself.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Susan Nakanwaji. Greetings from Regenerate Africa, where I come from. I am a certified green project manager from GPM. I am the Energy, Natural Resources, Governance, and Sustainability Specialist at Regenerate Africa, and so many other things. But most recently, I am an author. I authored a book titled Critical Minerals, Sustainability, and the Energy Transition in the Global South, a Justice Perspective. Please look out for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nakanwaji. I have read the book and I would highly recommend it. Yes, give her a hand clap. It is said dynamite comes in small packages. Dr. Nakanwaji is a lawyer, PhD in law. So we are in safe hands. And so allow me go to my extreme left, and Mr. Fred, if you could introduce yourself, and then who you are, what you do, 1 minute. Over to you, sir.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Fred Mukalazi Sadiki. I work for a Swedish company called Sandvik. It's a company that basically is specialized and a global power in underground equipment and ground support. I'm a geotechnical engineer by training, so I lead the ground support division in West Africa. I'm here to share my experience of the last 25 years working in other countries, finally to share it at home. So we'll see.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, engineer. It's an honor to have you. Yes, right next to engineer is Mr. Slavo.
Right. You said 3 questions: who, what we are doing, and why we are here, right?
Yes.
So let me start. My name is Slavko Šolar. I'm from Geological Survey of Slovenia, working as a raw materials advisor. What I'm doing, I'm the coordinator of the EU-funded project that would start in 2 months, 4-year project, called Uganda Country Window, a part of a huge EU package assistance in geosciences to Africa, a project called the PanAfGeo, the 3rd version, which is called the PanAfGeo Plus. What we will be doing within the country window Uganda is compiling the pre-competitive data to be ready for a further investment in the exploration. We'll be doing this together with the Uganda Geological Survey and the group of European Geological Survey, not only Slovenian, but also Polish, Portuguese, Czech, and Finnish. I would stop here. Oh, yes, and why I'm here? I was asked to be here. Thank you.
You're asked to be here. It is an honor to have you from the Geological Survey of Slovenia. I am tempted to ask the audience how many of us in the audience can actually locate Slovenia on the map, but we shall do that during the lunch break. So yes, let's proceed to Mr. Ben Young.
Morning, everyone. My name's Ben Young. I've got over 20 years experience in the mineral exploration industry, mostly in geophysics. I work for Excalibur Smart Mapping. We recently just completed the Koromoja project, magnetics and radiometrics. The data set will be released soon, or at least to the ministry, and it really looks fantastic. We're excited about it, and we're looking forward to future work that's going to come out of it. And I'm here to meet with people, catch up with colleagues, and hopefully drive some more investment into Uganda.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Ben Young from Excalibur. And like he said, Excalibur has just completed the aerial geomagnetic surveying of the Karamoja region. So for once, Uganda as a country, we have a homogeneous map that shows where we have what in this country, and we are ready for the next step of exploration. That is where I believe Mr. Slavko comes in, and then the rest of us to be able to attract investment in exploration. Next to Mr. Ben Young is Commissioner Keddy. Kindly introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Vincent Keddy. I am an Assistant Commissioner for Mines, responsible for licensing in the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development here in Uganda. And originally I was not part of the panel, but I'm standing in for the Commissioner, who is on leave. So I'll be here discussing, giving you an outlook of Uganda's mining sector, and possibly answer your questions given.
Any discussion of this nature would not be complete without government and government representation. That's the reason as to why Commissioner Keddy is here. So all the difficult questions, he is ready for them. And last but surely not least is a renowned figure in the mining sector in Africa, not just in Uganda. Dr. Frank Mujenyi, kindly introduce yourself.
Hello, yeah, my name is Frank Dixon Mujenyi. I'm a Ugandan, but an African. Executive Director of Minerals Africa Development Institution, one of the African-led think tanks in Africa. We work across the continent. And also a former senior advisor at the African Union Commission, advising African governments on sustainable minerals development. Now also a member of the Presidential Investors Roundtable on minerals value addition. I also work with some programs from the European Union, such as Africa Maval. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Frank Mujenyi. Apologies for those seated in an angle where you cannot see him, but trust me, he's right here, and the voice is his. But you're also free to move where you can see the panel better. So getting right into this discussion, recently the EU passed the EU Critical Raw Materials Act, and definitely that has an implication on Uganda and Uganda's mining, and we'll be getting into that discussion as well. It's important to note that as a country we do have critical minerals that are strategic to us as a country. We do have the 3 T's as I mentioned: copper, cobalt, lithium. We have graphite, as you heard in the previous session from the team from Blenco. And so we as a country, and also the rare earths in eastern Uganda. So we as a country are a prime destination for mineral investment. So I want to get started with Commissioner Keddy about, we need to understand from your perspective and from the perspective of government, how much investment in Uganda's mining sector is taking place at present? And what is the targeted level of investment? If as government we are saying that in the National Development Plan 4, we are focusing on agriculture, tourism, and minerals. Minerals is an important area that we want to grow over 10-fold. What are the comparative advantages of Uganda compared to other countries that you may know of when it comes to investment? Mr. Keddy.
Thank you very much, moderator. First off, I would like to start by directly speaking to the topic, unlocking Uganda's mining potential, including investment opportunities in exploration and value addition. Oftentimes I say in many forums that perhaps Uganda's mining sector is not. Oh, I can use this. Thank you. I've been offered to use this. I think this is more comfortable. In many forums, I usually say that whereas Uganda's mining sector is not well talked about compared to neighboring countries like the DRC and Tanzania, Uganda is actually sandwiched between the two countries. So it is needless to say that both countries are equally mineralized and they have a history of mining over time. So the sandwiched country in between, that is Uganda, has almost identical minerals that are found in Tanzania as well as the DRC. So the mineral potential is immense. So when you hear about the DRC, when you hear about Tanzania, equally Uganda is endowed with a similar geological environment with the same kind of minerals. So we have already, needless to say, the categories are metallic. The moderator already highlighted some of them. Importantly here we have gold, we have copper, cobalt, rare earth elements, arthritis, that is tin, tungsten, and tantalite. We have iron ore, we have lead, we have lithium, we have gypsum, you heard them say. In terms of industrials, of course, gypsum is actually, graphite and gypsum fall under the category of industrials. Marble, limestone, pozzolana, vermiculite, phosphate, salt, granite, bentonite, and kaolin. So you can see, in terms of comparative advantage, Uganda is very well endowed. In terms of gemstones, we also have beryl, garnet, tourmaline, emerald, aquamarine, among others. So, speaking to the topic again, in terms of investment needs for exploration, well, if you're a local Ugandan, you can actually apply for a license individually. But if you come, or as a company, and if you're a foreigner, to be able to do exploration, we expect that you either open up a company here in Uganda, or you incorporate one. If you already have one, you incorporate one in Uganda, and then you meet the requirements, typical statutory requirements, statutory forms, that company documents, financial statement, work programs and budgets, technical reports and so forth, and then you are able to enter into exploration. And we encourage many of you who are interested to come and join us in developing the mining sector here in Uganda. In terms of strategies for value addition, as a country, we have a policy in the country promoting mineral value addition in the country. So actually we have banned the export of raw or semi-processed mineral ores and concentrates in favor of in-country mineral value addition. And the particular focus is, of course, on critical or strategic minerals that the moderator has rightly pointed to. I won't repeat. And specifically, we have successes already in gold. We have almost 8 gold refineries now operating in the country. Tin, you heard about Woodcross already making tin ingots here in country. We have near about 6 cement factories coming into operation, also adding value to our mineral products here in the country. We have a rare earth project in the pipeline. We have ceramics, tiles locally made in Uganda using Uganda's raw materials, among others. So in terms of government's role in promoting this investment, we have a very stable, predictable, robust, and efficient investment climate. It's a peaceful country, and the laws and regulations that are put in place are favorable and predictable. And that is very important. We have also undertaken both airborne and ground geophysical surveys, ground geochemical surveys, ground mineral exploration drives in selected areas where there are mineralizations, and this we are doing to boost investor confidence in the sector. We have also packaged information for investors, and we welcome you to join us in developing the country. We have also carried out we are also planning to conduct a detailed exploration to de-risk some of these projects, possibly to pre-feasibility study, so that investors get confidence in investing. We also have incentives to promote investors in the country. The key one, of course, is that we have zero-rated customs duty on importation of mineral-related equipment. That is very critical. So, moderator, so far our investment in the mineral sector stands at about $1 billion, approximately. Obviously, we would like to have a proportionate share
in terms of how foreign investors also invest in the country, if you can have at least 1 or 2% share of both exploration and mine development budgets, that would be a good foresight, really. Right now, we stand at 0.01% of what we're spending on exploration and mine development. So Uganda has a very good comparative advantage when it comes to development of the mining sector because of its vast mineral potential and it is attractive investment climate. I thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So as a country, some work has been done and the laws are in place. The target areas are known. Packaging has been done. What is remaining is making sure that we let potential investors know where these resources are so that we can move to the next. But you see, some more exploration needs to take place. And I know, Mr. Benyang, with Excalibur, you've done some work on that front, especially with the aerogeomagnetic surveying of the northeastern part of Uganda. So what are the key exploration opportunities that you see in the mining sector? We have this homogeneous map. What is the next step, especially with regard to the critical raw materials that we know from the work that you've done with Excalibur and other work that has been done in the past that Uganda is rich in? What do you think are the next steps, Mr. Benyang?
Thanks, Humphrey. I'd like first to say to the government, I think they've done a fantastic job with the pre-competitive geoscientific database at present. It's really world-class, and I think it will attract investment. But saying that, there's always more work you can do, and that's what I really see as the next step, the next critical step, if you want to drive investment into specific minerals, is to look at specific areas, and Slavo will talk about that with some of the ground geology and that. But I'm talking lots of different data that you can get in there, so airborne geophysics, geochemistry, the higher end technologies, AI, I know it's the buzzword, but it is happening. It's being used for prospective mapping in regional scales, which we're using on your Ugandan data as well. So I would just say that the government must continue to invest in geoscientific data sets, and we have to start seeing it as infrastructure, the same as roads, rails, electricity. It's just as important. I mean, it's not something tangible that you can hold, but it's so important to drive investment into the country, especially the mineral sector. And that's really one of the ways that a country can grow its GDP and hopefully uplift its people out of poverty. And I really see that as the next step, is to do these targeted, focused areas, and that will really help identify some of the minerals. And I could talk about all the minerals that everyone's already talked about, the graphites, the tin, the copper, but everyone knows what they are and the opportunities that are available in Uganda. So really what I would emphasize is that you continue on this track of driving the investment by doing the work to get people to come in and de-risk some of those areas. Because if you do that, people will come, and they're already coming to Uganda. Because you have, like you said, you have stability, you have a good fiscal regulations, you just need to get data out there into the junior explorers' hands especially, and they will come into the country. Once they've got there, you've seen it in Australia, you see it in Canada. I mean, these are massive mining jurisdictions, and all they've done is release the data to the public, and that helps drive the investment into the country. Because once it's out there, the people that have the technical knowledge will come, they will see opportunities, and they will come into your country, and they will invest. And that's what I would suggest.
Thank you, Mr. Benyang. And you know, speaking about the next steps that you've highlighted and broken down, what the next steps would look like, I believe that's the reason as to why Mr. Slavko is here. And maybe turning to you, Mr. Slavko, and in your introduction, you talked about the work that you're beginning to do in a couple of months, which speaks to the next steps on exploration. And if you could just take a little deep dive into that, and then also link it to, I mean, Slovenia in Uganda. What's the comparative advantage that Uganda holds? If you could just take on that as well.
Right. Well, I would not going to answer the last question because I would need hours. So. But just to start with, that my country is not a mineral resource-rich country. And just starting the work in Uganda, I can assure that this country is. But the advantages on potential, you know, is something that in my position I can not really ask from my experience, but luckily we got questions up front and I could consult with my colleagues. And definitely Uganda, besides the mineral potential, has the other advantages which were all mentioned, and I could just support what was said, but I would add here the hospitality of the people, which is very important, the space for investment, so there is still the infrastructure, which of course should be improved, but is there. The country stability was set, and of course, the clear policy and legislation. And I'm not going to mention again, but I will, geological diversity with a huge mineral potential. So stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benyang. But you see, in this environment, over the years, and looking at Uganda's history, we were a mining giant at some point. We took a particular direction, but now we are at the place of getting back up again. Exploration has been done. The regulatory environment has been set. Investors are being attracted. The exploration work is, you know, some truth finding is going on. But then, as that happens, we are not oblivious of the challenges. Of course, there are challenges. And so I want to turn to you, Dr. Susan, and maybe Fred can chip in at some point. What are the main challenges that are limiting increased investment in exploration? Dr. Susan, you've done some good work on the critical minerals in Africa, and in Uganda particularly. You also understand on the environmental side where we stand with our biodiversity, with climate change issues. What main challenges do you see, and how can they, what is in place to mitigate those challenges?
Thank you. The challenges are quite many, but I'll pick out a few. Fortunately, my colleagues have hinted on some of them. But the first one I want to point out is the issue of the geological mapping and surveys. The government has done quite well on that front, but we still need to see more quantification now. We know we have the minerals and where they are located, but how much? How does it make business sense for someone who wants to come in? And then we have the beautiful laws in place. Like we already say, Uganda has one of the most beautiful legal regimes in the world. But when it comes to enforcement, we are seeing challenges there. Companies are decrying the bureaucracy it takes you to get permits, for example. Last year, we did conduct, there was a report which came out last year between Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum and Regenerate Africa. And these are some of the key issues they really pointed out. Maybe just to point out a few from that report. The report is titled Challenges and Sustainable Practices in Uganda's Mining and Mineral Sector, Case Studies and Insights from Eastern Uganda. Now, these are the practical challenges, the key challenges from there. They decried the high energy costs. One of the companies, I think, spends almost 4 billion Ugandan shillings in energy costs alone. And the energy itself is not stable, so they have to supplement their energy sources with coal. And we all know the challenges of using coal to deal with the energy transition movement. And then another company was talking about heavy demands of annual permitting and other regulations. Some of these need to be streamlined again. And then the environmental and social risks and challenges. Today, we cannot continue to do business as usual. Before we could give out licenses and there were no social protections. Today, we cannot do that. And also, this is mainly attributed to the changing global landscape. If we look at the EU, for example, with the Critical Minerals Act, the EU raw materials regulations, we in Africa have the African Mineral Certification Strategy. All these are streamlining how should we conduct our mining operations. So we can't run away from issues of ESG. And in Uganda, if we are to look at how many companies in the mining space have got an operating ESG strategy. There are very few. And if we are going to go back to tracing these minerals, today the EU requires you to trace the source of these minerals. Are they free from child labor? Are they free from environmental degradation? Are they free from human rights abuses? We cannot do that if we don't have clear ESG strategies in every operating company across the value chain, be it in exploration, in processing, in refining, etc. We need clear ESG strategies. And then I also talk about technological and technical barriers. Mining or the extractives industry is heavily reliant on heavy technology. Some of these are too sophisticated for countries like Uganda. But how do we mitigate this? Getting into partnerships with, for example, the EU, from major mining companies across the globe, so we can pick a leaf from there, joint ventures, and all that. Another challenge I can point out is the involvement of the state in mining. Again, Uganda is applauded. We now have the Uganda Mining Company. It's being operationalized, but now we need to be careful. In some countries where mining companies have been established, they have not broken even because of different challenges. Sometimes just a bandwagon. Yes, we need a mining company, but what exactly is entailed in a mining company? How do we make sure that it's going to break even? We can pick examples from UNOC and other companies in the petroleum industry. But now for the mining industry, things are a bit challenging. But there are countries which have succeeded. We can pick from the joint ventures with the De Beers in Botswana with their diamond industry. They have succeeded. So can we benchmark exactly what we need from there? Again, I think for now I'll stop there. The challenges are quite many. We can't finish them in one sitting.
Sure, the challenges are there, but we are well equipped to solve them. You've mentioned some of them. I want to turn to Engineer Fred. What is hampering the increase of investment in exploration and mining, and what are the solutions from your point of view? You have experience from all over the globe that you're bringing back to Uganda, which we are really grateful for. What do you see are the areas we should be cautious about, and what are the solutions therein?
Okay, so what I see is pretty much everything has been discussed by the panel, but I'll just give it probably a practical approach, which I look at. For me, there's three ways to look at it. One is to do with data processing. With Uganda, up to now, most of our data is on paper and sort of like nice, like aeromagnetic sort of like that's how we display our data. The other challenge we have is that we've got countries that naturally people gravitated to before. Countries like Ghana, you look at Tanzania where the Germans found the gold. This is where people are going. So Uganda needs to play the game a little bit different. We need to really look at it. If you are to look at an education spectrum, right? Let's say Australia, Canada, South Africa are somewhere like a PhD university. Uganda, we are sort of gravitating between kindergarten and primary school. Like, to be honest with you, like how many mines do we have here? Like some of us know it. When you're overseas and you say, oh, what do you do? I'm in mining. You go, where are you from? You go, Uganda. They always scratch their head. They're like, did you say Uganda or Ghana? Because they don't really know a lot of mines here. So the issue is that we need to have this data digitized so it's available. We cannot afford to continue. Back in the day in 2017, it's some of the data I still see that we present at the Indaba. It's still on paper. We need to digitize this data. So we put our best foot forward. The other one, the data has to be accessible. Please, anyone who needs a template from the Geological Survey or the government, just go to the Australian website. You can access that data to the end zone of where you can read a tenement when it becomes available, so you can read it. The data in Australia, after 5 years, if you've done nothing, you should hand it over to the government so they can give it to the next person. So the issue here is like one colleague told me, Uganda, we open the door about that much. Someone knocks on the door, you open about that much. Who are you? Like, we don't let any people come in. We should be able to let these people come in, look at what we've got and move forward. And finally, it's the people. We've got data that the EU has actually just given us, the drilling from Kisoro, right? That data is still sitting on paper. That data should be digitized so we can actually put those block models available to investors. Otherwise, they won't look at us. They'll continue going to Tanzania, Indaba, and all the other places. That's my contribution.
Thank you very much, Engineer. And I think your call for digitalization is very welcome. I know this afternoon in the presentation and launch of projects funded by Team EU initiatives, there is an aspect of that. But you're right. When the lovely British were here, the British Geological Society has more data about this country than probably anyone else. But we need to be able to put that data, put all the other data, and be able to digitize it properly and package it. And I think those are some of the takeaways that we are putting down from this engagement. And I think that's making that data available. Ladies and gentlemen, very soon I will open up for audience questions and contributions. Like I promised, we have to make sure that this is, cutting across. You're not just watching the lovely panel of experts here, but rather participating in what is taking place. Now, recently, the EU passed the EU Critical Raw Materials Act that definitely has implications on us here as Uganda. Whether you like it or not, it means that we have got to do things in line with this act so that our minerals can find their way into the European market. And basically, that's one of the reasons we are having this discussion. How do we make sure that that happens? I want to bring in Dr. Frank, and then I'll open it up to maybe Mr. Slavko to chip in on that. What are the implications? What are the key aspects and the implications of this Critical Raw Materials Act on Uganda, okay, and on the region? Dr. Frank.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. Actually, when the EU Critical Raw Materials Act came into force, at the same time, Africa launched the African Continental Free Trade Area. And we at MADI, we actually ran a workshop, an online workshop, trying to find out what would be the implication of this act coming in at the time that Africa is launching the African Continental Free Trade Area. Africa Mining Vision talks about Africa adding value to its resources. It means that we need to also open up regional value chains. And at the end of the day, we need to have minerals that will join the supply chains to enter the European market within the EU Act. The EU Act is supposed to help EU source critical raw materials from other sources other than the traditional one that they have been using, especially China. And this is a strategic point for us to actually be able to join with EU. The project that I'm accredited to right now, Africa Maval, we are trying to look for at least 100 proposals, project proposals from Africa. And my colleague, Claude here, can give you more. We are trying to look for projects to enter the EU market under the Green Deal. But how do we do that if we do not attend to a few issues? First and foremost, most of the resources that we have are mined by the ASM, believe it or not, including tin, and especially here in Uganda. In this forum, before we came in the opening session, someone asked me a question, that why is the southwestern Uganda, and it's from EU, southwestern Uganda has a lot of tin, but there is no big exploration company like Rio Tinto. Some people may argue that because of the ban, export ban on raw materials, some may argue that, okay, there is a new mining code in Uganda, which may be restrictive because there is 15% free carrier. There is also a production sharing agreement. But as we speak now, we have seen companies coming in to put in refineries I'll just mention a few. Wood Cross in Mbarara is refining tin up to ingot up to 99.96%. We have now Blenco, which has gone into Acholi for graphite. We have Tembo, recently was launched by the president in steel. So what is the missing link? I think the missing link with the government is to look at beyond Uganda and work with the neighboring countries. Most of these corridors are raw minerals crossover. The tin in Kabale, in Isinjiro, crosses over into Karagwe Hills of Tanzania. But if we can't do exploration together, joint exploration projects, it's not going to be possible. If we cannot have at least minimum ESG standards that governs our small-scale miners to mine responsibly, our resources cannot enter these minerals under this new law. We have, for instance, certified trade chains in DRC. It's a code, it's by BGR, and a number of minerals enter the European market from DRC, certified under that code, CTC, you can Google it. And CTC can work with ICGR, regional certification mechanism, which is also trying to put at least minimum standards of ESG. So we need to look at diversified chains. We will need to look at cross-border special economic zones, and then we work on at least trying to get minimum standards of ESG, build capacities of our small-scale miners, and then be able to access this market of European, which is very lucrative for us in Uganda. And as we've heard from the opening remarks, when I looked at the percentage between 2019, 2020 to 2023, 2024, it increased by 80%, 80%, from 500 to 900 million. But when you look at the composition, it's lacking minerals. There are no minerals there. They have just been, disaggregating the data. If we include minerals for the next year, we probably could go to 1.5 billion or trillion and so forth. So let's look at a few key challenges. And what I would argue the government of Uganda to look at is mainly infrastructure. Blenco right now is trying to do an SPG facility that will process graphite and add value in the continent, in the country, and will be the off-taker from their mine in Kitgum. But there is no infrastructure, there is no energy. Until we do that, then we will not be able to attract companies to come and invest in value addition and trade within the continental free trade area, but at the same time, under the European Critical Raw Materials Act. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mojenyi. The implications, I think, are clear that as a country, companies that are involved in the mining value chain need to adhere to global standards of ESG. There needs to be proper traceability of the minerals. I think it's clear about having responsible and sustainable mining practices, which any company that is involved in mining in the country must adhere to. I know Commissioner Kedi did allude to this, that there's regulation to that effect and enforcement to make sure that that happens, so that as a country, our minerals will adhere to the requirements of the EU Critical Raw Materials Act. I just promised to turn to Mr. Slavko to just chip in on this. Coming from the EU, what are the implications for Uganda?
Right. Well, this is another topic for hours to discuss, but let me try to be very brief. The Critical Raw Material Act is to ensure secure supply of critical raw materials to Union, and has four major areas. First is strengthening all the stages of European CRM value chains. When we look at the benchmarks for the European value chains, we have a benchmarks at 10% of EU extraction, we have a benchmark of 40% of processing capacity, and we have a benchmark of 25% of recycling. So we start with the extraction, there's only 10%. That's the aim of the goal. So the next part is diversifying EU CRM imports to reduce strategic dependencies. And this is the place for all the countries around the globe that would definitely include also Uganda. And as those targets cannot be reached, there are several elements regarding the international trade and global production to ensure this desertification of supply. I will be reading because I don't know everything by heart, but using the trade agreements to secure and diversify, expanding EU network of strategic partnership with value chain approach and strong sustainability dimension. The strategic partnership, EU and many other countries are already taking place. I believe in Africa there were several countries such as South Africa, Namibia, Democratic Republic of Congo. So, and then one instrument which is quite well known and we were hearing about is using the Global Gateway to soft and hard infrastructure deploy projects along the raw materials value chain. The next one would be working with the EU countries to set up EU export credit facility to lower the risk of investment and technical and fair trade protection related to raw materials and increase enforcement. So more than a lot of space for involvement on the country level, but just a few words going back to the concept of strategic projects. Immediately after the release of the Critical Raw Material Act, which was in May last year, also the call for strategic projects came out, and it took 3 months. That was the application time, and the Commission announced that it's more than 170 projects. Most of them are European, but there are 1/3, 60 plus, which are projects from other parts of the world. And there are projects looking at the parts of the value chain, looking at the extraction, looking at the processing, but also on recycling. So all these projects at the moment are in the evaluation phase, and to my knowledge, it should be announced in March which would be those projects. What would actually mean to have a label that you are a strategic project for according to the CRM Act? There are two main advantages, and this is that EU would help with the permitting process. This would be particularly valid for EU because the permitting process is way too long. And the other one would be to facilitate access to finance, which would mean that a project would be in a way certified from EU, supported from the EU financial institutions most probably, which would guarantee lowering the investment risk. Besides, there would be other things involved, such as joint purchasing, such as facilitating in finding the off-takers and so on. So there are several instruments for the industry to in place or planned to assist those projects that would be certified as strategic. So I am pretty sure that in the next period, Uganda will be able to promote some of the projects that would also come in the area of strategic projects according to the CRM Act. I will stop here. I could add a few other things, but I think it's...
That is very good news from Mr. Slavko that, look, the CRM provides opportunities for particular projects or targeted projects to gain access to finance, which was highlighted earlier as a bottleneck. And so solutions are on the table. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to open it up to us. I don't know if we have a microphone that can go around. And I want to request somebody to... where is the microphone? You have the microphone? Very good. And now we are going to start from the front here. I will take 3 questions first, then we answer them, then take another batch of 3. Please make it as brief as you can. Let us know who you are, where you're from if possible, and then your question or comment. You're welcome.
Okay. Maria João Batista from Geological Survey of Portugal, work package leader for mineral resources assessment in Panafchel, and a member of the team of the country window Uganda. My question is first for Mr. Ben, and I would like to know some details about the work the precious work you are doing here. The survey, the air geophysics is finished. Maghreb, which is the lines distance, just to know the detail of the survey, and in the geochemistry, which lab did you use for the analysis, and which media did you use on the ground? And my next question is for Mr. Commissioner. I'm sorry, I didn't understood the name.
Vincent.
Vincent,
yes.
Mr. Commissioner Vincent. My question is taking some advantage of the comments of Mr. I'm sorry, I don't
Fred.
Fred.
Yes.
Where all this information goes, if it goes to the geological survey, if it will be available for the project we are starting in April, because we don't want to spend European money inventing the wheel.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a very good question. Yes, we'll take a second question. The gentleman on the second table right there. Yes? Your question or comment, then we will come to the lady here to my right.
Yes, hi, good morning. My name is Jan from KfW, German's promotional bank. So I was quite happy to hear from Mr. Slavko when you started to talk about access to finance, because I wonder, being a financing institution, what is needed in Uganda, and especially what are the ticket sizes? Are we talking about 5 millions, 500 millions? Is it $1 billion US? So just to understand, especially where Uganda stands in terms of the financing needs compared to other developed markets, so where the development banks could play a role here in Uganda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I think the money guy is asking, how much do you need? Who needs it? And so, yes, I know, Mr. Slavko, that was for you. But Commissioner Kedi, you can also chip in on how much and who needs it on that question. The last question for this round, and then we answer, then we'll come back.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My question will go to Assistant Commissioner Kedi Vincent. A number of panelists.
Sorry, who are you?
My name is Diana Nanono. I work with the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development as the head private sector development unit. A number of panelists have pointed to one of the challenges that we have in the permitting process, which basically translates to the bureaucracy in obtaining permits. I just wanted to appreciate from you, Assistant Commissioner, what we are doing as a country, as a ministry, to ensure that we reduce the bureaucracy and these burdens to doing business in this sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Interesting question. So we'll start with that round. Mr. Benyang, you had some questions, and Mr. Slavko, complete with Mr. Kedi, then we go back to, yes.
Thanks for the question. I'm very excited about the project to start with, but in technical terms, it's 200-meter line spacing. So for a regional survey, that's almost exploration grade at that line spacing. So it is a really fantastic data set. I've seen it. So there's a lot of opportunities that are going to come out of that when the report is released, which we estimate will be April. I'm not sure when the government will release the report, but that's when we will release it to the government. The flying height was 50 meters. It included 50 meters. Yep. It included magnetics, horizontal gradient magnetics, radiometrics, and scalar gravity. So we have a scalar gravity system as well. So you're seeing the long wavelength features over the whole area. In terms of the geochemistry, I'll be honest, I don't know the exact details of the geochemistry. I can find out for you. Yeah. I believe so, yeah. I'll find out for you though, definitely. But I can just say a bit more about the project. The stuff that we're seeing, I've seen the initial report. I mean, it really is fantastic data. And I agree with what one of my fellow panelists said. I think if we could get the regional data and knit those together, I think we'd understand the regional geology really, really well. We've seen that in some other countries in the SADC region, when you start to get data across the borders and you're allowed access to it, which the governments are starting to do some collaboration. If that can happen in Uganda, I think we'll really start to understand what's happening on a regional scale. And the regional scale is important, as you know, because it really drives the initial mineral genesis, I would say. So you need to understand the regional factors that are in play and what's causing these minerals to develop in certain situations. So if we could get the other side of the border, that'd be great. But Uganda has got an excellent data set, and I hope it will be released, and I would encourage the government to release that data to the public at a very, very either free or a minimal cost, because that really will drive the investment.
Fabulous. And I think for the more technical questions asked in there, I would want to propose that lunch, the two of you sit on the same table. Let's go to Mr. Slavko to take on your question, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I will not go and sit on the table in the break, because the question with regard to the amount of finance that would be put in from the EU and the other ones, I was talking about facilitating to access the finance, which means that also European financial institutions will be involved. But this would go from project to project, in my opinion. And as I'm not representing Commission here, I'm an observer of the process as such, looking at the opportunities that the concept or the instrument of strategic project would do. But you, from the finance side, you would have experience with financing mining projects, and you would know the range, what would be needed for extraction, what would be needed for processing, which are quite a different numbers. What is indicative here with regard to strategic project is that they are looking at this stage of the value chain. So extraction and the processing would be two projects, which in reality, in most cases, would be one. But that's another story. So the bottom line is, I cannot give you any figures, but it goes in the figures that are normal in investment in the mine development and the processing. So we are talking those numbers, of course, because nobody would invest more than needed, or you won't go if you don't have sufficient sources. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think there is also need for some creative financing when it comes to the exploration side of things, because that is a high-risk capital as well as patient capital that is required on that side. But I do believe that as a country, as we package these strategic minerals as a country, work that is happening with government at the Presidential Investors Roundtable, with the Chamber of Mines and Energy, would be able to come up with bankable proposals that would be able to know what figures we're talking about and what level, whether it is mine development, whether it is the exploration phase. So yes, but it's good to know that the money bags are in the house. I'll come to Mr. Fred, Engineer Fred, on this, but to just make a comment on the questions. But before I do, let me ask Commissioner Keddy. There's a question on licensing. Demystify this whole time lag and challenges around licensing, and yeah.
Thank you very much, moderator. First of all, I'd like to just weigh in on the conversation that was held between the Geological Survey of Finland and Excalibur. Portugal. Oh, Portugal. Oh, that's good. I thought Finland. because 80% of the country was flown between 2007 and 2012. We acquired high-resolution geophysical data, and it was done by the Geological Survey of Finland. And then the remaining 20%, which is the Karamoja and Lamu regions, were done by Excalibur. I thought the conversation was about maybe whether the data was compatible with each other. Each data set was compatible with the other, for which I can say that has been done. We already looked into that and made sure that, those data sets are compatible, and we're able to interpret the entire data set from Geological Survey of Finland as well as Excalibur.
Very good. So you've earned a seat on the lunch table?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Where does the information go? As soon as Excalibur completes its survey, all the data will be handed over to the ministry. And now what we normally do is that, of course, the data is fully interpreted, and we update our geological maps. So all that interpreted data and the maps that we generate, we usually display them for free. We give them out for free. We display them on our websites and so forth. But for those who want raw data, for example, you want raw geophysical data, airborne geophysical data, geochemical data, that in raw form, we charge a very minimal fee, I think per square kilometer, about 20,000 Uganda shilling, which is going to be about, that's about how much? About $3.5 per square kilometer. So it's at a very affordable cost. And the main reason is really to recoup some of this money that we borrowed from the government of Spain to do this work. And so the information, all data sets will be available to the public. So we're not going to, the main purpose we're doing this is to promote investor confidence, to boost investor confidence. There is no point of keeping this data and not disseminating it to the public, really. KFW, how much do we need? Generally speaking, the mining sector needs support. Obviously, we are relying presently on the government of Uganda's support, but also we have some development partners. The EU, for example, has supported us. We appreciate KFW. You support us in other sectors. Specifically in my ministry, you support us in the energy sector, and thank you so much. But we would appreciate you coming into the mining sector as well. There are so many support areas, including supporting data acquisition. There's some details, most details are we to do, especially also in regard to supporting our artisanal miners to define their mineralization. We also have some work to do in terms of environmental protection, in terms of capacity building the capacity, especially of our actors in the sector, small scale and artisanal miners. Also, we welcome some governance support, the review of some of our laws and so forth, and among other things. And so how much do we need? It will depend on the scale of the support you'd want to, because if I'm to break it into several areas, it will be a big chunk of money. But if we can have a discussion and see what KFW is open to supporting, we can strategize and see how we can compute, and then we can submit it. I would be happy to have that discussion with you during the break. Diana, bureaucracies in the permitting process. Now, when it comes to licensing and permitting, there are some challenges. One, when it comes to these licenses, like prospecting licenses to deal in minerals, these are usually very easy to get. It takes about 1 to 2 days, and you get it. But of course, it takes 2 days or so because of the requirements. Some of the requirements need a tax clearance certificate, for example. So you cannot apply before you get the tax clearance certificate for your company or an individual if it's local. You need, for dealers in minerals also, you need some kind of clearance from police. You're not dealing in illicit trade or money laundering, something like that. So it will take you some time because of the requirements. However, when it comes to exploration and so forth, usually people submit documents which are inadequate. So sometimes you request for additional information, and there is a time lag between when you have requested for the additional information and when the applicant actually responds. So there, it is about the applicant generally responding and having the application dealt with in time. When it comes to mining licenses, now this is where the big challenge is. Because of the requirements, before you mine in someone's land, you need to acquire land. Now, someone can apply and you can take a decision to grant the license, pending acquisition of surface rights. So actually, you can take a decision to grant a mining license, pending acquisition of surface rights. Now, for some projects, it is easy. For others, you can find maybe 1 or 2 people who are making claims which investor is not interested, which is, I can say, which is very high. And in that case, it takes a bit of time to negotiate, and government will come in later. So it depends on the period you take to acquire. And also, we have the certificate of environmental impact assessment, which also you have to hire a private practitioner to do this, submit it to the environment authority, and the time you take before you can't grant your mining license before you acquire some of these critical requirements. And so these are some of the challenges we see. But as a government, what are we doing? Already we have had meetings with the National Environment Management Authority to make sure that this permitting process for environmental certificates are fast-tracked. And then number two, in regard to land, Parliament is handling a bill now, you're aware, to see that the government sees a way of acquiring this land easily for investors and for public infrastructure projects. Because even public infrastructure projects have the same challenge. One person can delay an electricity connection for almost 2 years. And so this is something that the bill Parliament is considering will come to handle. I think that is what I can say for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Sakedi. We'll take another round of questions. This side has given some 3. Yes, if we could have a microphone to the gentleman in the middle there, right there.
My name is Clark Emmanuel Tulengera. I'm from Tule Supplies and Technical Services. My question goes
kindly speak up, please, if you can. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. My name is Clark Emmanuel Tulengera from Tule Supplies and Technical Services. My question goes to Commissioner Vincent. Considering the sector's potential for economic growth and development, I would love to know what initiatives your department or as government has in place to encourage startups and young entrepreneurs to participate in the mining industry. Specifically, I would love to know if there is any funding, training programs, or mentorship programs for young people in navigating this mining industry. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. If we could have the microphone there, and then the lady. Yes, and then, yeah, we'll take the fourth.
Thank you so much. My name is Alan Agumya. I work with a company called Gecko Minerals, Uganda. We have an exploration project for critical minerals that we're carrying out in the country. I've been in the mining business for more than a decade now, about 13 years in this region. And my issue, none of the people on the panel is talking about the business aspect, why we're here and why we want to partner with the EU and exploit the market potential there. And I don't know if there's anybody from Rwenzori Minerals here today. None. So my point here is this. I used to work with a trading company that used to export tungsten to Germany about 10 years ago, until the war in Congo broke out and we couldn't export to the European market. So we had to go to other markets. But I think it was in 2016. So China controls 80% of the tungsten market in the world. And every time it releases quotas, how much tungsten concentrate is going to pour into the market. And when that happens, the prices of all minerals plunge when it pours more than is required into the market. So this same thing has happened to rare earth minerals in the past 2 years. The price of rare earth minerals has dropped by almost 50%. And our project, the Mukutu Rare Earth Project, is a very good project. The absorption clays there are similar to the clays we see in China. And that means it's very easy to process, and it's easier to process the Mukutu Rare Earth Project compared to the Gakara project in Burundi, because we have the clays here have less thorium and uranium. But right now, because the price in the market is very low, that company had a market cap, I don't know, of almost $80 million last year. Today, if you check the market cap of the company, it's plunged because the price of rare earth and appetite there has plunged. So in this case, this is where I think the EU should come in, because if you look at the Critical Minerals Act, act that was passed in the EU last year, they want to reduce the reliance on one supplier across the world. to less than 65%. So when you look at that, today, all the heavy rare earth minerals being imported into the EU market, 100% of that is coming from China. We have the ability to, our deposits in Mukutu are one of the biggest in the world. If you Google it, the Mukutu Ionic Rare Earth Project. But the problem we are having across Africa, I'm sorry if I'm using so much time, but I need to put my point across. The problem we're having in Africa is that we don't have any R&D in minerals. And this is why I appeal the EU to really look into R&D, research and development on how to process and refine minerals much, much cheaper than what we see in the market. The reason why the Chinese are a foot ahead of all of us in the world is because they've invested a lot of time and money in R&D, in rare earth, and they're doing it at more than half the cost what other people can do. So I appeal that, and my friend Mugenyi, the people at Maval and everybody, to start opening up research labs for mineral processing and refining to put our youth to work today. Because when you look at agriculture, our friend in agriculture here in Uganda, we have NARO, National Agricultural Research Organization. We don't have nothing about minerals, and we're talking about mineral value addition. We cannot meet that market. And one last issue I would like to point out is that, for example, when you look at Uganda's resources, Uganda has the capacity to supply more than 300 tons of tungsten every year, but we're supplying nothing to the EU market because we want value addition. Can the EU help the private sector here invest in value addition and tungsten? But lastly, I was looking at the mineral supply chain for the EU minerals, and I looked at, there's a mineral called magnesium. Magnesium comes from dolomite. We have very huge reserves of dolomite in Uganda that have the capacity to supply the EU market with enough magnesium. All the people with laptops here, all the high-end laptops here, the biggest element in those laptops today is magnesium. It holds almost 30% to 50% of the components there. The EU market trade on magnesium is more than $1 billion every year, and all this money is going to China. Uganda has the capacity to be at the forefront of this. We have the minerals. The only challenge with magnesium is the energy costs involved in processing magnesium. Yeah. But we can bridge the gap on the energy costs and try to exploit this market. It's a $1 billion market. There are very many things, there are very, very opportunities we have in Uganda, but I think we honestly need to look at the potential of the market and how much money we can make from the EU market, because it's a big market. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm called Arnita Esther Gloria. I'm from AEN Holdings Limited. We conduct environmental social impact assessments, audits, and we also deal in waste management. So I'm wondering, is there any supplier database for the mining sector where consultants like us can register, and then these investors can be able to access our services? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. And the last question, then we'll take the answers.
Thank you. My name is Robert Atui from Ragshaw Engineering Services. My question is addressed to all the panel members. What are the skills gaps in Uganda's mining sector, and what are the steps being taken to address those gaps? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that. So the question on skills gaps, the two doctors here, Dr. Frank and Dr. Nakanoaji, will take. The question on startups that was targeted, that was meant for, I think, Commissioner Kedi. R&D, I think we'll make a general comment, and we'll do the meant to wind up, so we'll do a final remarks. So what we are going to do is this. You have the questions that you've been asked or the comments. We'll make sure that everybody has a chance to respond, but then also give their final remarks. If I could start with Dr. Frank, and we go to the end. You deal with the question asked to you and also your final remarks.
Thank you so much. In terms of the skills gap, Africa has got a lot of capacity for young, educated young people, but building capacity, building skills, specific skills for the minerals sector is what is lacking. And there are a number of projects from EU, for instance, PanAfGeo, which is a project that has been training young geoscientists since 2016. As of now, they have trained over 1,750, if I'm not wrong. And these are young people who have been trained in schools on geological survey, on geosciences, or geological mapping, but they needed skills. African Union has been running a program on mining law in Africa. Just recently from Cape Town, I had to visit Cape Town University to see how best can we build skills in mining law in Africa so that we get good negotiators who understand. There are about 50 steps of negotiating a good contract in mining or infrastructure anywhere. So we need more skills, but the biggest skills that we are lacking right now are in the sector that is very predominant in the mining sector, the artisan and small-scale miners. These young people are going in, they are pathfinders, they lack geological knowledge, they lack technological know-how, they lack safety and health and safety issues, they lack environmental knowledge, so they go in. So we need, with that skill set gap is huge. But when we go into the professional mining, where we need the companies come in and they want to procure services on skills, there is a lot of projects going on, different areas. We have quite a number of mining engineers. I've met a number of them, except that in Uganda now, most of them have been going to petroleum because it's been the kid on the block. We need more into the mining sector, skills development. But there are a lot of projects out there with our development partners that are building these skills.
And your final remarks?
My final remarks will just go with Alan on the research and development. It's very critical, and I was going to talk about it in terms of value addition. But these need to be cross-border, it has to come within cross-border industrial parks, cross-border special economic zones, where then in there, you can actually have business development incubation, you can have innovation centers, you can have skills development again, and research and development. We have, I came from Cairo in December, there are metallurgy institutes. We have vocational institutes in Uganda, which can be upgraded to offer some of these skills that we are talking about. So I want to urge and reinforce the statement on research and development, but I want to refer that to Africa. I think we need to build our skills. Yes, the partners can come in, and they're actually coming in. But on research and development, on investing in the young people, it is actually a predominantly issue of the government. We have young people, they need to build the skills. Yes, let's have to leverage on resources from outside, but let's put our sources there. We have seen young people somewhere, everywhere. A young person somewhere has built a lift. So they have knowledge. Let's give them skills by investing in them. So my conclusion would be invest in the young people to increase research and development.
Thank you very much. Yes, Commissioner Keddy. Your questions and your parting shots.
Thank you very much. I'll start with Mr. Bulega, who said that what initiatives do we have to encourage startups to participate in the country? Now, locally, first of all, we have provided for a progressive licensing regime for startups for artisanal and small-scale mining. So we have two categories of licenses that are predominantly for the local startups. So artisanal mining licenses are for those who are really starting. Even if you have a mere rudimentary tool, like a hammer or so forth, you can start up using this particular license. And then when you progress to above $100,000 in investment, then you get a small-scale mining license. So that alone facilitates that progression from one stage to another. Now, when it comes to financing, how do we help these people start up? Recently, with the EU, under the SCP EU Development Minerals Program, I remember we had a guarantee fund under the Africa Development Bank at up to a tune of about 12 million euros. That allowed these people to use it as security to borrow money at some affordable rate. So that really helped those actors in the development mineral sector to acquire some money. When it comes to high-value minerals like gold and so forth, there are still initiatives that we are undertaking. For example, funding Uganda Development Bank to be able to give money to our artisanal miners at a very competitive rate. So the initiatives, not yet in place, but we are working on them to make sure that even those are taken care of. Now, when it comes to FDI startups, Uganda Investment Authority has a one-stop center. If an investor abroad comes here, there's a one-stop center that facilitates fast company registration. So essentially you have different agencies of government within the same building that will aid the investor to, one, easily register a company. Number two, acquire permits easily, investor licenses and environmental permits, initial environmental permits, easily work permits to allow you to stay in the country longer so that you can invest. This is a one-stop center. So FDI setups are also easy, relatively easy, and the government has worked on it. Now when it comes to Esther, who said supply database for mining sector, presently we do not have one. But we're working on one because we have a set of regulations, one of which is the local content and national content regulations. We have already come up with about 3 sets of regulations, and we are still remaining with about 3 more. And one of them is the national and local content regulations, which will provide for supply databases for the different services, including equipment suppliers, including transporters, including those who are rendering services, supplying food and so forth to mining sector actors. I wouldn't say that we would register environmental practitioners because it is not within our mandate to register them, to accredit them. We would just make reference to the accredited site of environmental practitioners under the National Environment Management Authority, because sometimes they accredit and discredit. And if you don't have control, you don't want to have that as your database. You'd rather refer to an updated database from NEMA. So that will come in force. We shall have a database for these actors. Skills gaps have already been talked about, but typically speaking, as a country, already some mining entities that have moved ahead have developed some institutions. For example, there's an Iolwa Training Institute where some Chinese company which was making fertilizers has started training our local people in vocational skills. So we have a young, enterprising, and hardworking population of young people who are willing to work and learn from the expatriates in the sector. And so usually when the expatriates come, they take up some of those people and learn. So that has been the gap. But we're also working with the Ministry of Education. Actually, we have had several meetings over the last 1 year to develop specialist curricula in these vocational schools specific to mining. And these are going to be rolled out in due course to different institutions to incorporate mine-related fields, welding, some of the mine-related fields. Really.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keddy. Yes, Mr. Ben Young.
Thanks. I don't think there are any questions for me, right?
So you can give your parting shots.
I just wanted to say, to follow up my fellow panelists, I believe like upskilling is vitally important for Uganda and Africa in general. There's a real lack of geoscientists actually, technically competent geoscientists, and if we can get that going, then there'll be opportunities for employment galore. And I think Uganda's in a unique position with its critical minerals at this stage. They've got so much interest from different competing parties that they can leverage that to really drive a win-win situation for themselves. And I think going forward, that's what they should be aiming for. And I think on my side, that just means investing more in the industry through exploration, through mining, processing, all the things everyone's talked about. And I would say Uganda's in a very good position because of all its qualities, like I said, stability, government, all these sort of things, the geology being the most important one. And if they can leverage that, then I think Uganda will have so much opportunity to grow and move forward in the critical mineral space. And I would say to anyone out there, invest. If you've got a chance, invest.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Nakanwaji?
Yes, thank you.
The question on the scaling gaps in Uganda's mining sector has been answered by my seniors here, but maybe just to add on what exactly do we need to add to our education system. Artificial intelligence and digitalization cannot be left out. We shall need this for tracing our minerals, the traceability models and all that, geosciences, geochemical engineering, the legal sector like you've mentioned there. But also we need to realize that there are gaps at every stage of the value chain. There are pre-feasibility studies during the licensing phase, during exploration, production, and then transportation, and then mine closure. They are all gaps, education gaps, which arise thereof, which education institutions can always look into. For my parting shots, I would want to say we need to understand what challenges and barriers exist in Uganda's mining industry if we are going to attract investment in the sector. So this are ranging from infrastructure, fiscal, taxation, environmental, social, economic models, and so on. So we need to understand where the gaps are, and then we can come up with the right practical solutions. Maybe just one thing to say, let us not forget about our development needs as Uganda. When you look at the EU's Critical Minerals Act and all their battery regulations, they are looking at mainly one thing, securing supply for their economy. In Uganda, what do we need? We need good roads, we need infrastructure, we need our healthcare system to be improved, our education system needs to be improved, our industry has to be improved, and so on. So how do we leverage Uganda's mining industry to actually achieve this kind of development? And surprisingly, for those who follow the Mining Indaba events, South Africa declared coal as a critical mineral because to them coal is essential for their development, for their energy needs. During the Russia and Ukraine crisis, or the war which was happening, we saw countries backstepping onto their earlier commitments on phasing out coal. Germany, for example, had vowed to stay away from coal production. During that crisis, because of their energy needs in Europe, they had to reopen their coal fields. The UK did the same with its North Sea continental shelf, opening up gas fields. So let us not forget our actual needs as Africans. Let us customize whatever we are doing, when we are giving out licenses, let us not forget what our needs are as Africa. Therefore, we need to balance the ecological needs, we need to balance the social needs, we need to balance the environmental needs in whatever we do.
Thank you very much, Doctor. And this afternoon, we will be delving into the ESG issues, still under sustainable mining, a discussion that will happen here at 2:30. Yes, Mr. Slavko, your parting shots.
No question, right? Great. Anyway, firstly, what I would like is to complement what Frank said at the beginning with regard to skills, and actually announce what trainings will be held in Uganda in next period. It will be on geological mapping, geohazard and environmental mine protection, geodata management and geocommunication. On top of that, within Uganda country window, we are planning to have 10 postgraduates included in the project as well. So there will be some potential to do that. The last remark, which is not so concrete, is another example from the Critical Raw Material Act, which is calling that each member state would come up with a national exploration plan. And this is the national exploration plans in Europe, which is revising what is already there. In Europe, there are surveys with 150 years of constant operation. They have a lot of work done, but again, they'll be looking at. And here I would point out that Uganda is at the stage collecting the basic geological information with the airborne, with the mapping and everything else. But I believe it is a need for a national exploration plan Our project is start to work on it, but it's important to increase the knowledge on raw materials, and that is one of important parts of de-risking the either state or either private exploration investment. So just to conclude, national exploration program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And lastly, but not least, definitely Engineer Sadiki.
Okay, they've covered off on everything. The only thing I was going to say was about the skills gap. In my opinion, one of the issues is that you have an opportunity right now, especially like Assistant K. You have an opportunity with the EU. They are putting a lot of effort in this country. Get a chance, they've discussed the PhD students. My own experience is the university I went to, we only had one PhD in 6 years when I was hanging around the university, and it was purely because once you get into the industry, you want to start making money, right? So what you need are the skills to get you into mining. And what I would suggest is, we've had a couple of guys at the mines department here who were trained in Tanzania. They actually learned the skills, they spent times in the mines. Let's have a program that deals with actually artisanal mining. Let's go down that road. In Ghana, where I am, they do have what they call their national service. These individuals come out of the universities, join us, and they spend time with us. The EU has got, through the Swedish embassy, they do have some people here. Kiruna is one of the biggest underground mines. There's a lot that we can do with this partnership. That is the one I wanted to say about skills. About the one to do with the magnesium and all this stuff, I hate to be like a broken record. This comes down to data. You know that data, but someone sitting outside of Uganda, can they access that data? Do they know your mind? Probably not. We need to digitize this data, make it available. Someone just sits there and can at least zoom in and see what's going on your site. And the question you didn't actually ask, which we wanted to cover, was value addition, right? I'll just say this. Right now, as we speak, it's got nothing to do with critical minerals at the moment, but what can Uganda do today? Uganda has got iron ore sitting at Kisoro. The EU has done the drilling. Let's just progress that. When I was here at the Mineral Wealth, I showed you the market that the Tembo steels and these other steel mills are not looking at. We can get that product that they're producing, turning it into ground support, galvanize it, start selling it to DRC, start selling it to Tanzania. My company I work for, it's not my company, the company I work for is making about $85 million, all right, out of selling through Africa. That's what we sell. I don't really know what the others are selling, but there's a market there. And this deposit is just sitting there with guys chipping away, putting it on the road and selling a ton for $10. The cost of a ton of iron ore is $105 right now on the market. So we just need to wake up, right, as Ugandans, and just move that. And the reason why I say iron ore will save you, where the lithium mines are in Australia, iron ore actually set up the infrastructure because they've got the deep pockets. They set up the roads, they set up the electric grids, and then these lithium guys came up. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, interesting discussions. We are out of time, but join me in giving a very big hand clap to the panelists, the brilliant discussions, and we have some very good action points from here that are being put together by the rapporteur. In the afternoon at the closing event, we'll be able to come to highlight what are we taking away, what is our homework from here, how do we move from here, what is the way forward. Just a few housekeeping announcements that from here you're invited to go down to the basement where the exhibition is, and other meeting rooms. While you're in the exhibition, you will be given your lunch coupon and proceed for lunch. Lunch will be at 1. Lunch will be at 1 in the tent just adjacent to the exhibition area. After lunch, you are invited to come back here at exactly 2:30 for panel discussion 4, which is going to be on sustainable mining in Uganda, environment, social and governance, financing, and clean energy solutions. We've tickled a little bit on it here on ESG and clean energy and all that for the mining sector and sustainable mining practices. Let's have a deep dive this afternoon right here at 2:30. So from here, proceed to the exhibition booths where as you tour them, you'll get your lunch coupon, have your lunch, 2:30, make your way back here for the afternoon session. Thank you very much, and thank you for being a splendid audience. You can clap for yourselves. I want to ask the panelists if you could just take a stand right here, take a picture for archives. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen.